Nosheen.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good,
How's it going?
good, pretty good. Thanks for joining me this morning. I'm so excited to talk to you. I actually, before we start and get into anything, and just so you know, I'm already recording. I record right off the bat.
Okay,
If you can just sort of introduce yourself and let everybody know where they can find you online.
of course. My name is Nosheen Iqbal, and I'm based in Richardson, Texas, which is about 20 minutes away from Dallas. And you can find me at Noshi, Noshii, on Instagram. That's my handle. And then on my website, noshi.com, which is the same, Noshii.
Okay, awesome. Oh, you're in Richardson. What is that, like west or east, north or south of Dallas?
It's north.
North?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. We
I'm kind of northeast-ish
northeast.
from
Okay.
Dallas.
So like is that by like Flower Mound and Denton
No,
sort of?
that is kind of going towards Denton. Yeah, a little bit towards it. Denton's quite a bit far away,
Okay.
an hour and a half. I went to school in Denton,
Oh, you did.
so
The reason I ask is because we came really close to moving to the Dallas area in June.
oh, okay,
Yeah, we were under contract for a house in near Rockwall.
okay.
Yeah, it was
Which is
like,
Rockwall is very close to where I live.
oh, okay, nice. Yeah, so that my husband went down. We were like under contract for a house, and he went down to like meet the inspector. I mean, we got so close. We were,
Yeah,
um, and then at the last minute, we just decided because the house had a homeowners association, as so many of the houses down there have. And
yeah,
because I run the business out of my home, I got afraid that they would, because it was a pretty strict one too. Like they fine you for weeds and you
oh
have to
wow,
get all the colors approved. Like if you want to paint your door or like paint your shutters or
yeah,
anything. So it was very strict. And I was like, what if they get mad that I have trucks coming in and out? Or even if I wanted to like have a warehouse sale one day, because they said in the bylaws that you are allowed to run a business as long as you don't have like customers. So,
okay,
like so they don't want like barbershops and things like that
yeah.
run out of the house, which I understand. But I don't
It,
know.
it's funny because the HOA, I mean, the bylaws seem so strict up front. But as you're living, I mean, we've lived in our house for 10 years and we had the same sort of restrictions, and a lot of places do. But I mean, we started construction on our backyard and we didn't put in like approval for it. And
Right.
then they came over and they're like, oh, just send in this document, or, so it's not as bad as I think it is.
That's good. I know. You just never know though. Like I have heard horror stories. Like there was
Yeah.
when we were going through this process, I was just sharing my story with like some local friends, and they were saying that like one person's sister or mom or something, they were dealing with an HOA in Arizona, and they had put up like string lights in their backyard, and apparently that wasn't allowed, or so even in the
Oh,
backyard
wow.
they were trying to oversee all of that. So I just got scared. I was like, God, what if one day they're just like, you know what, we change your minds. You really can't run your business out of here. And I was like, oh, I don't know, babe. Like, I don't. So anyway, we decided we're going to keep looking, but we have to
Yeah.
find a place with no HOA.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. That's
Yeah.
really tough.
So how long have you been in the Texas area? I think I read from your profile, you were born in London?
Yeah, I was born in London. I moved here when I was 14, so it's been a few decades since I've been in Texas. But we've pretty much been in the Richardson area ever since high school, and I moved here in during high school.
Okay.
So yeah, it's almost. I was talking to somebody about it, and I guess I've spent like two-thirds of my life in the U.S. now.
Yeah. You're more American now than.
Yeah, yeah, and my accent kind of comes and goes as well. So
Well, I don't
yeah.
hear any Texan in there. There's not much of a
Yeah,
Southern.
no.
I think the combination of the Southern British accent might be really interesting.
Yeah. I get asked if I'm Australian a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I guess that's sort of to be expected. And do you ever go back to London? Do you still have family
I
there?
so I have my parents live in Texas. They're just down the street, and but I have a lot of family members still in the UK.
Okay.
I used to go back every year, and I feel like once I got married, it kind of and had kids, it kind of staggered out a little bit. But I was able to go back, and luckily, where I was working at the time, I used to travel for work quite a bit, so I could make a little stopover in the UK before I came back to Dallas. So that was the perks of corporate.
For sure. What kind of corporate job was it?
So I was a watch designer for Fossil, and I
Cool.
used to design watches for DKNY as well.
Oh,
And I
that's
was studio or sorry, a photography art director as well at the beginning of my career.
okay.
So
Very nice. So, what did you go to school for?
for graphic design,
Okay, so
uh,
you've always, I can definitely
went to
see, I can see
UNT.
that in your work now for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I went to UNT. I majored in communication design. I did take a lot of textile courses, screen printing courses, any sort of studio course that I could get my hands on that was art related. But graphic design at the time was really my calling, and that was something that I wanted to do. And I was able to get an internship at Fossil while I was still at UNT as well.
Oh, very
So
cool. So, when you came out of school, did you already have a position with them lined up?
I actually had a position 2 weeks before I graduated with them. So
Very nice.
one of the lucky ones. I was one of the lucky ones to have a job in such an amazing place right out of school. So
Yeah, for sure. So, did you know as you were growing up that I mean, I have to assume you had this inclination toward artistic endeavors. And when you were applying, was it a specific, is it an art program? So, it's a graphic design program at school?
so it's funny because I've always loved art. I've doodled, I've painted, but it was always seen as a hobby. It wasn't something that I was gonna make a career out of. And when I moved to Texas, I didn't take any art classes in high school. Like the last 2 years I had over here, I think I took one ceramics class, and it was only because I wanted to make pots, and that was it, and have a whole bunch of pots around my house. But I didn't think about going to school for design until I think I started taking some courses, and then I was like, wait, I can make design a career. And at the time, and it was also persuading my parents because we're South
Hmm.
Asian, you know, design and art. But I flipped through the yellow pages at the time, which I don't think yellow pages exist now, and I just put my finger down on a printing services um, company, and I called them up and I said, hey, I want to learn the industry. And this was right out of high school. I was like, I want to learn the industry, and I'll work for free. I don't have any experience. I just want to check it out. So it was a very small service bureau. They hired me on. Within a month, they said, we're going to pay you. Like, you do a lot of work around here. Let's pay you. So I did stuff from, I was doing match prints, making screens, all the above. And that's where I learned a lot of the Adobe software.
Ah.
And then from that, I was like, okay, this is a career path that I really want to take. So then I transferred to UNT. They had a really strict design program. You have to submit a portfolio. You have to get accepted into the program. At the time, there were about 250 kids that applied, and only 40 got in.
Hmm.
Oh, no, sorry, 80 got in. And within the program, they have like review, mid-year reviews, and then exit reviews. So
Okay.
it was pretty sick, but I mean, the teachers, the professors are amazing. I learned so much along the way. It's a really great program.
God, I think that's
Uh,
so amazing that you knew so early, like while you were in high school, to take the initiative to
yeah,
contact this company. I'm so curious, like, especially when you're at that age, how, like I didn't even at that age, I didn't even know graphic design like was a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's because I grew up in
yeah,
Michigan and just and my immediate circle, I guess, with my family, because they're Korean, was just like that was not an option. It was just not a thing that I knew existed. It was like design or graphic
yeah.
design or even anything, even in fashion. I just didn't think about it. You know what I mean? I never saw it as an option.
And you're not the only one. I didn't know about it when I was studying in the UK. we have what's called GCSEs, which is like a 2-year course in high school. And you have to choose 10 subjects to focus on. And so 2 of those subjects was art, and I also took a design technology class. And I remember a project that I worked on, and there was like an open house for the kids to bring their parents in. And one of my friends' mothers actually said to me, "Have you thought about graphic design as a career?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And so she started to explain to me, you design logos, you can do editorial design, and that really piqued my interest. And I feel like if she hadn't told me about it, and the course that I was taking at school, I wouldn't have known what graphic and the how far reached graphic design is. And it's so important, and just selling product and marketing, and so
totally. I mean, thank God for that mom who would, because even just the suggestion of something and it like stays in your head a little bit. That's so cool. We all need someone like that in our lives. Yeah. And it makes me realize I need to continue, like I need to constantly introduce my kids to new ways of doing things.
It was that affirmation, and exactly. If we don't expose those things to our kids, like I see my kids growing up, my eldest is 10. There's so much scope out there in different careers now that we just weren't aware of.
I know. And especially now with the internet, it's like multiplying with the types of.
Well, you can't stay ignorant. You have to know. And there's no excuse not to know now. So
I know. And it feels so hard. I don't know about you, but for me, I feel so overwhelmed by it all that I feel like I'm constantly just pulling the wool over my eyes and putting my hands over my ears and kind of trying to shut it out because it's too much. Yeah. Like I feel guilty that I'm not learning more,
Well, it's hard to focus on what you need to focus. And you're right. There's just so much stimuli out there now. Yeah.
Right. And just too many options. Like there's too many social media options, like I'm not on TikTok and I'm constantly feeling sort of guilty that I'm not using that for the business. And I mean, just so many things. But wait, so
I'm not on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
On Facebook, but I'm dormant. And so, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Facebook is also, I don't know. It's become its own weird beast, that I don't think even as an artist, you necessarily need anymore. I think it's good for if you're a local business or something like that. But wait, so tell me, so you mentioned you're South Asian?
I'm South Asian. My parents, my background is from Pakistan.
Okay.
My mom moved to the UK when she was 5, and my dad moved when he was 20. So very young when they moved to the UK. And then my husband's also Pakistani, so we still maintain those South Asian roots, and we're very, very much invested in our culture. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get out of college and you take a job with Fossil, and you're working as a watch designer. How long did that last? And then take me to the point of where you sort of become more drawn toward working with fiber and the current rendition of what you're working with now.
So it's funny because when I was at Fossil when I was in the art direction department, in the branding department, I started to already dabble with embroidery. And I used to embroider when I was younger too.
Oh, hold on 1 second. You're breaking up. Sorry, 1 second. I might have to ask you to repeat that.
There you
go. Okay, keep going.
So while I was at Fossil, I started playing around with embroidery, and it was something that I already did I was watching, I guess I was following a couple of people that were doing embroidery, and I was like, okay, this is something that I want to revisit. And so I was doing a lot of set design and styling. And I work with a lot of backgrounds as well. And that was when I became really interested in how I can figure out how to take embroidery to the next level. And so I started working on little art pieces. At the time I was using a hand drill. I was drilling through 1-inch thick wood, which is ridiculous now that I think about it. And I was using wood, I wasn't well versed in woods. I was using wood. I used ash, which is, baseball bats are made out of ash. So it's one of the hardest woods. And I was breaking my bits and it was just a mess. But my first set of works I produced on these really thick pieces of wood, all hand drilled. And I got a lot of traction from it. And I did a window installation for Hermes.
Oh, wow.
And that was back in 2010. So this is like some time back. And I did the window installation. I was like, I love doing this. I think this is, people are reaching out to me. People are wanting commissions. So it was very, very small. I was doing it whenever I had time. At that time, I also had my first child. So it was working full time, loving what I did, and all my time was invested in my full-time position. And then this was a side hustle, my passion project, and then I had a newborn. So I put the embroidery stuff on hold, and I would, whenever I had time, it became a hobby. Now and again, I would get commissions, and then I really started to push it when as I became a watch designer, I became involved in working with a lot more materials, a lot more finishes, and that's when I started to play around with different types of materials for my embroidery work. It wasn't until about 2014 when I really tried to push this into more of shape it more into like a business. And as I was working more, I started getting bigger commissions. And then finally in 2015, I quit my job at Fossil. I was like, okay, I'm going to start freelancing. I'm going to start consulting, and I'll keep pushing my embroidery work. And then it wasn't until 2 years ago that I really evolved it into what it is right now. I became a little bit more picky about the materials that I was using, how I was the process that I was creating, the techniques that I was using. I really refined what needed to be done. And so I think I have to say, like, last year was the turning point for me, where I was like, okay, this is something that I want to stick to. I want to make it into a full-time thing. Because you're always going back and forth on thinking, is this can I make a sustainable living out of this? And I have a lot of friends who are in the same position, and they're doing really well. And in talking to them and the advice that they're giving me, it's like, you should just go for it. And as I was working, I was getting commissions from private collectors, but then I started getting a lot more commissions from hospitality teams, art advisories. So that was really where, I saw the value in my work and the time I needed to put into it. And I think another thing, as I was working on it, 10 years back, I wasn't giving myself enough studio time to really develop ideas and kind of hone those out. So now, now I make sure I get that studio time in where I can kind of play, pull inspiration, really think about my designs now, think about the colors, the shapes, the compositions.
Right. So, can we go back to where you made your first embroidery on wood piece? This is really early, right? I'm wondering, was there a moment where you had like that eureka moment where you're like, I want to do it on wood? Like, can you remember that? And what took you there?
So I remember stitching on a lot of paper. Like, I had paper everywhere. I was putting it through my machine. I was using my mom's machine at the time, and I just remember, like, I would just, burn that machine out. And then I think I took some of my influences from furniture design, especially mid-century modern design, where they're using the roping and they're using these woods and the beautiful connection that it's making. So I think that's what really sparked, like, okay, I need to figure out a way to create something that's a little bit more unexpected, but still, pleasing. I didn't want it to be some forced kind of vintage looking piece, because it can easily become very crafty looking.
Right.
And that's, I feel like when you look at my work then to what it is now, you can really see like the progression of where it could have been a little bit crafty and it kind of turned into a little bit more,
Like fine art.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, and then in 2015, when you decided to quit your full-time job, what sort of went into that? I know for me, my husband put me on, he said, and he didn't put me on restriction, but he said, just think about it really hard and try to make sure that you can replace your salary. So I didn't quit until I was able to. So I'm wondering, what were the thoughts that went through your head as you were approaching that decision?
So, it's funny when you say that because you're so working full time, you're so used to this biweekly paycheck coming in. And, as a freelancer or, an artist, it's like bulk.
Yeah.
Like you wait months and then you get this bulk, but I try to do that. I try to wait for that, my art, what I'm making from my artwork has to replace my salary. And it just wasn't, it wasn't, I was at a point in my career as a designer and I had got to a creative director position by then. So it's very hard to replace that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing. One of my friends was like, okay, I didn't make it. When she made the switch, she was like, okay, you have to give yourself a year because I was complaining about not having enough studio time and because I was working a 9 to 5. So I had to get out of that 9 to 5 rut to give myself enough time to kind of build it. So it was almost like I had to take that, leap of faith and be like, okay, I can make this happen. And I think that's why I was still holding on to a little bit of freelance work and a little bit consulting, consultant projects that were coming up, and I was openly taking them. And so it was giving me more time to work on my artwork. But yeah, that first year was a lot of stress. It was very stressful.
Well, of course. And at that point, how many kids do you have now?
I have 3.
3 kids. Okay. And how old are they?
They are 10, 8, and 3.
Oh, you have a little one.
And it's a boy.
Oh, nice. Oh, is that your only boy? So girl, boy?
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah. So then you've been for the past 10 years, you've also been having kids and having to balance your studio time and motherhood and all of that. How do you do that?
I don't. No. I think so. 2 of my kids do go to school. My 3-year-old is at home with me, and he's. I feel like he lets me get work done. I mean, I'm lucky. He does like to be engaged all the time. He's very chatty. It's great. I love having him. He's my little fan club. But I just have to delegate my time through the day. Like if I need to get studio time, I drop off the kids early in the morning, and I have to now. My morning ritual is to go for a walk for about 45 minutes. I have an amazing partner next to me. And then I come home and I really crank out studio work for the next couple of hours before he really gets engaged into wanting mama playtime and all of that. So I think there's this, every day is different for me. I try to keep it structured. I work 7 days a week now. So
yeah, I know.
It's hard to put it into, 5 days a week. And my husband's like, I thought you would have had more time. And I'm like, no, it's the same.
Yeah, I know. If anything, less time because your work is growing and more people are aware of it. And I'm sure as it grows, if anything, it just gets harder to balance all of that.
Yeah. And, the admin work, the emails that are coming through, the things that as artists we hate, but we have to do. Hopefully I can outsource that, but
yeah,
hire somebody on part-time.
Oh, that's good. Just for the admin work, or do they help you in the studio?
Oh, I haven't hired anyone yet, but I would like to.
Oh, so this is hope for the future. Hopefully the near future that you can do that. That's one of the hardest parts I find. And I held back for so long just because I'm not good at delegating. I mean, I'll be honest. Every position I've ever had, like I only managed someone once when I was at my corporate job. Like I got to a level where I was managing one person. So I don't know. I just don't have like delegation skills, I think, or like boss skills because I don't.
Yeah.
I tend to want to befriend everyone who's around me.
Yeah.
So
That, that's difficult.
yeah, like drawing that boundary.
Really, yeah, you need to create that boundary. And you know, I when I started managing people, that was something that I figured out. Well, I wish I'd figured that out quicker than I did. But just gaining that respect of, you know, your employees and stuff. But yeah, it's hard to delegate stuff. And you know, I want to have control over everything that I do, and I want to make sure, you know, emails are going out to in a specific voice. And so still, I think right now having that connection with a lot of the clients that I have, I feel like it still needs to be me. So we'll see. I don't hopefully hopefully soon in the near future. You know,
I have faith. You will. It's going to happen. So you were recently in the Other Art Fair in Dallas.
yeah.
Can you tell me about that experience? And was this your first year doing it?
This was my first year doing it. They're amazing. They're presented by Saatchi Art, and they're pretty, you know, renowned worldwide. This was the second show that they did in Dallas. So Dallas is a new city for them. And yeah, I was very excited about doing the show. And you know, after the pandemic, I haven't done any shows for the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have this show kind of under my belt and getting back into you know, you no longer were interfacing with any of your clients or any of potential customers. And I think it was really good to see how many artists that came out and how many people that came out that really appreciate artwork. And I think it was, I'm in Dallas, they have a lot of craft fairs, but they don't have that many art fairs.
Yeah.
We have the Dallas Art Fair, which is an amazing event that happens every year. But I feel like at the consumer level, there isn't an art fair that's at the level as the other art fair presented.
Right.
Yeah, but it was over 4 days. I shared a booth with a macrame artist. She's amazing, and so our booth was just it was the fibers booth, and we were the only fibers artists in the show.
Oh wow!
Which was really surprising. It was really surprising. There was a lot of photography, painting. There was some sculpture. There was another fiber art. Well, she does embroidery on photographs.
Wow.
Her work was amazing too.
Who was the macrame artist you shared the booth with?
Christina Elia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I knew her.
Yeah, she's great. And she, I feel like the way our booth was laid out, we have very distinct styles. Her style is very, I wouldn't say haphazard, but since mine is so like thought out, a little bit more refined.
It's very structured and geometric.
Yeah. And hers is the opposite. So you could really see a contrast between our two styles, which is great. And I loved having her as my booth mate. But there was a lot of traffic and a lot of people came, and I had a lot of good conversations with people viewing my work. And this was a lot of people had seen my work on Instagram, and they would come to the show, and it's so different seeing it in person. And it was just great to get that feedback and have that conversation with them. But yeah, I was sad that it ended. But hopefully they will do another show in the spring. And I hope to enter that one too. That's
great. So do you have to submit your work to get approved to get the booth? Is that what it is?
Yeah, you submit it. It's a curated show, and there were about 130 artists. There are artists from Austin. There are a few that flew in, a few that did shows that were from the other art fair, but different cities. So it's almost like some of the artists were kind of traveling with the show. Mm-hmm. So I think the last one that they did you go to the Brooklyn show?
I didn't.
They will have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did a Brooklyn show. They did the London show prior to the Dallas show.
Okay.
And they will be doing one in Melbourne and Sydney, um,
Awesome.
Toronto or something.
Yeah, there are I like because of the pandemic, I haven't even been really paying attention on to like what
Yeah,
is going on with the art fairs because New York has so many, right? I mean,
yeah,
we've
yeah,
got the Armory Show and Art Basel, which I don't think has been in New York for a while because the main location is Miami, and
yeah,
obviously like Switzerland, I think. But yeah, no, there are so many. I think like at a certain point when I was working in the arts, and this is like 2010, this is like 2005 to 2015, basically. It was like, I mean, they just kept growing with the satellite fairs. It was like
yeah,
Scope, Pulse, the Affordable Art Fair. I mean, there were so much. So like even now, I'm just like, what happened? Like
yeah.
during the pandemic, does that mean they were all not happening? And then I think they're starting to pick up now,
Yeah.
which is so great. But now that I live like an hour away, I find myself not being I'm like not being as proactive in terms of like going out and seeing what's out there, which is terrible. I really should go see, but
I feel like after these past 2 years, it's almost we've got so used to being at home, and we really need to be pushed out the door. Like it's taking me a little bit of time to kind of get out there and see what's going on in the world. But yeah, and because there is so much going on in Brooklyn, I bet it's hard to choose which one you should go to. And
exactly, yeah.
yeah.
So how was the pandemic for you? You said that you really took that time to sort of figure out your vision for your work, which is so
Mhm.
awesome. How was it in terms of, I mean, finding time to create? And were your kids home all the time, or did they go to school? What was happening in Texas? In Texas?
I was actually during the pandemic, I was in my element. I was at home, I was able to create, and it was, my kids were creating with me. We were schooling virtually through half of the year. I sent them back at the latter end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And but I found a way to kind of balance the kids and finding time for my artwork. And I feel like that kind of set up how I balance it now. And I was able to, because I didn't have the pressure of so many commissions. I was able to create stuff for myself and kind of play around, kind of explore avenues I wanted to take. So I really, the last year, I really saw, how like I took this creative journey and how it changed through from like January to December. And I feel like I needed that time. Like some artists take out 6 months
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, we're going to shut our doors. We're not going to talk to anybody. Just let us paint. And so I feel like that was me last year.
Yeah. It's so cool. Your work is so beautiful. It's funny because when I figure out like who I'm gonna talk to on the podcast, it started out with a lot of people that I sort of already knew and we had chatted in DM before. But with you, it was like I only discovered you sort of recently, which is crazy to me since you have been, I mean, I feel like you've probably been on Instagram as long as I have. I mean, probably longer. When did you when did you get
um,
on?
I think I got on in 2014, but it was more like if you look at my Instagram, and I haven't deleted a lot of those pictures.
Is it
Like
like
I
just
have
kids?
pictures, and it slowly progresses into artwork. And I don't have the heart to delete any of those because I kind of like seeing, okay, you can really see where she was like kids.
Yeah.
I was making embroidered brooches. Um, and then it transitions into the artwork. So I kind of like seeing that progression. And I feel like whoever's following me can kind of see the journey that I took through my feed. I
Totally.
know a lot of people go back and they like delete everything that, they don't want people to
I
see.
can't do it. That would
But
just break my heart.
yeah, and I don't know that it's hard for me to kind of pick and choose what I want to do. Even some of my embroidery pictures, I'm like, I don't know if I ever want that to ever see the light of day. But yeah, I've kept them all. I've been on Instagram, but I wasn't active. I wasn't using social media as a tool until a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I would put my artwork on there and see, I let my friends see it and they would like it. And, that was, fine. But probably in 2015 is when I really started to put pieces up on there to
Okay.
get feedback. For the longest time, I did have my account private too, and I'm like, I'm not getting any likes, and I'm like, oh, that's why.
Oh, that's so funny. Wait, so when you did the Hermes display, how did they find you? Because this is probably before you were on Instagram, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was when I was working at Fossil, I used to work with a lot of freelancers that we would hire, and two of the guys that I was working with, they used to do some of the set design for us. And his full time, well, one of his bread and butter clients was Hermes, and he he saw some of my work and he was like, hey, you know what, I want to pitch you, I'll pitch you to them and you can make a window installation. And I was like, oh, and I was so naive, I was like, sure. And because I didn't think they were gonna take me seriously, and they did, and they let me, they trusted me and they let me create this piece for them. And it was I used to do a lot of linear stitching, which was it was just running stitch. Okay. And it's an equestrian piece that's on a screen. And I really played with colors in the main. So that was one of, color for me in my work is such a big part of it. So.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So I was lucky to land that.
Yeah, that is so cool. So right now, are you mostly a commission-based business, or are you able? I know, like during the pandemic, you were able to create for yourself. How are you sort of balancing the two? Are you creating work that you just release on your own when you have pieces to put out there, or are you sort of taken up mostly with commission work?
Now, currently, I'm just doing commission work. Within the past 6 months, it's picked up where I haven't had time to put pieces online and keep being able to kind of replenish that. People are reaching out to me on Instagram and they're, commissioning pieces that I've already created. They may switch out colors. So that's been keeping me pretty busy. And then there are some people who will ask, oh, when's your next shop update? And there isn't one. There isn't one. So, and I just finished a project for Virgin Voyages for the Virgin Atlantic cruise line.
Oh, cool.
That went live. I put a video on my stories. I haven't put that on my feed yet. But I've been working on that since, I want to say May. I worked on it in May. I finished it up 2 months from then. They had a lot of approval. They have like a whole approval process. And
I bet.
But
so
yeah,
was it many pieces? Like, were you doing it for the rooms or like a main?
So the cruise line is called Scarlet Lady, and there's a Mediterranean restaurant called the Dock House.
Okay.
And I created 18 pieces for them, and it was in about 10 of the 12 of the pieces are in the lobby section, which kind of splits between the restaurant and the bar. And then the rest of the pieces are in like a small nook where people can kind of lounge. I think they take out some of the cushioning when they need to set up band that will play. Yeah,
that's so cool.
That was the highlight of the year.
Yeah, is that the biggest sort of commission you've done, or?
That is the biggest so far. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
And so I have a few more commissions like that that are coming my way. So
like the larger scale, larger in quantity.
Yeah. And I'm working on a few for build outs as well. So I'm working with architects with elevations and seeing what pieces fit in the rooms. And
that is so cool. It's like, even if I wanted to commission something from you, I'm like, you wouldn't have time to do it yet. You really do need you need a studio assistant so that they can take care of some of the other ones.
Yeah. And I do. So I squeeze in some commissions for friends here and there whenever I get time. And I have a friend who's been asking for a commission for God knows when. And she's been, bless her, she's been so sweet. And she's patient about it. So, yeah.
I know. That's the thing about your work. I mean, I can see it so beautifully installed. I mean, in so many places, just like it, I feel like it, I don't know. There's just something about it. I'm so drawn toward it.
Thank
Um,
you.
um, so what was I going to ask you? Oh, so with the other art fair, was was it a consumer show where people would go purchase pieces on the spot, or was it more industry based where you were getting more hooked up with art advisories and things like that, or was it both?
It was both. So they had the first day that we opened, it was a private viewing, and that was a higher ticket to get in. And
Mhm.
that was when a lot of the advisories came in, a lot of the hospitality teams came in. There were interior designers that came in too, and they would rush through the booths, and you could tell that they were in the industry. Just the way they take in artwork is just
Mm.
very different. It's very quick. They're like, okay, that those folks we want to follow up with. So I made a lot of good contacts that way as well.
Okay.
And then the last 3 days, that was more consumer based, where we had people come in. They were buying artwork off of the walls. They were commissioning pieces. I actually already had a lot of follow ups from the other art show. Um, so it was really good exposure in both arenas.
I know. I almost wonder if it was too good for you. Like, I just don't understand how you're managing all of that as a one person shop right now. And do you work only out of your home, or do you have a larger space that you work out of?
Oh, it's only out of my home, and it's funny because I share my studio space with my husband, who's a musician,
Oh,
and
wow.
so we come on the fight for space. Um, no, I'd love to have a studio. I think that's one thing with having kids and being able to be home and see the kids and having my studio space as part of the house. I think that's something that I want to stick with. I don't think I could have a studio somewhere else because I would just miss out on seeing my kids.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean, but
it's
Texas is full of those properties where you have like a garage building, like an
yeah,
outbuilding. That's like because
yeah,
that's the thing. That's what we've been searching for is like,
yeah,
places where you can have a separate studio or where
yeah,
workshop.
yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually, hopefully, once if we move out of this house, we would look for a space that I could make a studio part of the house. That
Yeah.
that's my dream house.
Yeah. I mean, because you make some very large scale pieces too, don't you?
The largest I've made is about 48 by 48.
Okay.
And
Okay.
right now I have pieces leaning up all over my house. Like my dining room is part of my studio. And so I would love to go bigger. There are some limitations to the way I create or the process that I use. And so I'm trying to overcome some of those things and figure out what the best way to fabricate some of those pieces are.
Yeah. No, I know because I could totally see your pieces going really, really big. There was one triptych I was looking at on your Instagram that was like
Yeah,
more organic than what you're
right.
than the pieces that you're currently doing. Are you sort of veering completely away from that sort of aesthetic?
Um, yeah, I kind of I kind of transitioned out of that. I think about 5 years ago. That was where it really became okay. I love that distinct divide between some of the linear work that I do and how those lines kind of lay over some of the grain of the woodwork. I
Mm.
like how that's so contrasting. And so I feel like I wanted to, with those pieces that you saw, I was painting like the organic,
Yeah, it was beautiful.
and I look back at that work and it's just different. It's like a different collection in my mind. And I might bring that back in some pieces. I've thought about doing like a section where it's just colored, almost like those colored rainforests, kind of painting it in, having a contrast of like that linear stitching. So we'll see. I might bring it back just because you mentioned it.
Yeah, I hope you do. It really caught my eye. I mean,
Yeah,
I love, love, love your geometric works. But there was something about, I don't know, there was something about that one, just with the organic flow of it all. It
yeah,
was, it is quite different, and it belongs in a separate sort of, definitely a separate collection.
yeah.
But yeah, it was also equally as beautiful.
And that was 1 inch thick. wood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing with when I used to work on those pieces, because I was working with such thick wood and it was taking me forever to drill the pieces, that I would, when it would come time to embroidering those pieces, it was like, okay, now I have to embroider it. So I feel like with the pieces that I can put a lot more embroidery on my work, which is where my passion, the color and the embroidery and the texture, I can focus a little bit more on that now,
Yeah.
with the way I'm making it. So
Yeah. Can we talk about color for a few minutes?
yeah.
I'm curious how you work with your clients on that. Do they usually have just like a set palette and you kind of have to go along with it, or how much input do you have to do that?
I kind of go both ways. There's some clients who absolutely trust me with the color. They'll kind of, what I like to ask is, which colors do you hate? So
Mhm.
I know not to include those colors. And then I know, the spectrum is my playground. But when I'm working with interior designers and hospitality clients, I ask them to send their deck, their style deck, and I try to figure out the color palette from what their deck looks like. And then I propose a couple of color palettes to them. It's difficult because, there are so many embroidery threads. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds, and I'm sending them a palette of 5 colors.
Yeah.
So I almost tell them, okay, these are my 5 colors, but I'm going to do some highs and lows between these, but stay within this, range. And color, with the embroidery thread, the way I embroider it, the color changes as I place the thread over other threads. The color kind of vibrates and changes. So I haven't had a client tell me that they haven't liked the color palette, but so that's kind of how I work. And a lot of the clients that do purchase my work, they kind of realize that what my style looks like, and
Mhm.
they respect us. And so I'm lucky that they've given me, I guess, artist license to.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have any of the clients put you in a like have you had to do anything that you're uncomfortable with, like color palette wise?
There are a lot of clients who love. They'll tell me, put some yellow in it, and then I'll tell them, well, the wood is yellow, and sometimes the color will get lost. So I'm just letting you know that it won't be as vibrant as you think it will be. So when they ask me for colors, no, that's the only. I think that's the only ask that I've gotten, that I've said, okay, I use less yellow.
Mhm.
And this is not. I love using ochre in my work. I love using. But when it comes to those very light yellows, yeah, that just disappears in the work.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless I started to use darker stains lately, so
Mhm.
that's something new that I'm working on. And I love the way the colors pop on that, so the lighter colors.
Nice. And actually, have I seen even a lighter stain, like a bleached background, or no?
No, I haven't done a bleached one yet. I think the lightest that I use birch, Baltic birch,
Mhm.
and so there's a stain. Some of those lighter ones are just the natural. I put a natural stain at the top of it,
Okay.
so it's kind of true to the natural wood.
Very
No
cool.
bleached yet.
Not yet. Somehow I see it evolving into the future. That could be something you experiment with.
Yeah,
I guess if a client asks, like, so what is your, if a client was like, you know what, my whole house is, what is it? What is that? Lime finish, where everything's sort of just like a bleachy
yeah,
white.
that's
If someone was
the
like, well,
one.
this is what my house looks like, and so I want the background to be
Yeah,
this, is that
yeah.
something like, as an artist, is that something you would sort of try to fight or go along with, or what would you say?
I would I wouldn't say no. I would I would test a few things out. I think when clients come to me with requests like that, it's difficult because I haven't created anything like that before. So it's almost like I have to create a sample and present it to
Mm.
them for them to give me the approval, which I don't really do samples, but I do like little color studies that I send to people. But yeah, it's definitely something that I would be able to do. I would just have to factor in the time of like, okay, let me test this out out before I can say yes.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. I mean, you would have to build that into, how much you're charging and things like that. That's the hard part, is because like you end up doing a lot of free work.
Yeah.
If you do have to provide samples and
Yeah.
go through variations and versions of things, you
Yeah.
gotta be mindful of your time.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So I guess before we end, I am curious, when you were a kid and you decided you wanted to go into, the art industry and be a creative, and you said you did have to convince your parents a little bit. How did you go about approaching them, or did they? Yeah, what was their reaction to all of this?
I think, my parents didn't. I think when I told them that I wanted to get in the art industry, they're like, okay, she is artistically inclined. They weren't gonna, deny that, and so I think they let me go ahead with it. And when I got to university and I was in my program, and I feel like they saw how happy I was creating work in the program, and they kind of just let me be. And I think they try to see, can she figure it out? If she can figure it out by herself, we're fine. They didn't really question too much, but I could tell that they're like, there are probably other careers out there that you could have career paths that you could have taken that, might have been a little bit more sustainable. But when they realized that, I graduated, and I graduated, once I graduated, I got a job quite easily. They're like, okay, this is the real deal. This is something that you can do. I think if I had gone to school for fine arts and I had done, just kind of spiraled out of control, they would have questioned that more. I think it's because I found a career that definitely had a stable income. They did see that growth. They were happy.
Right. And it was a corporate creative job with a
corporate creative
with a brand name that they were familiar with, which I'm sure gave them a lot of relief.
Yeah. No, that did help. That did help. And I don't think I love where I am right now. I feel like that creative journey that I took, my background that I have, that all really paved the way for where I am right now. And I think all of those experiences that I had in both graphic design and product design, it's helped me along the way, and it's helped me figure out what my art today should look like. And it's that element of professionalism is there as well that, I don't think I could have gained if I had gone straight into the art world.
Right. What do you find most challenging right now for you, or what do you sort of worry about?
I think just making sure I balance home life with, my art career. I think that's the biggest challenge I have right now. And making sure that my kids, I love inspiring. My kids are so inspired by what I do, and I think they're my biggest fan club. And so, but it was just making sure I have enough time with them, because building your business, you just don't have any time to do anything else. And wherever I catch myself checking emails when I should be spending time with my kids. So that's
constantly looking at your phone. That's me, always on a phone.
Yeah. And my social life, I don't really have one.
I hear you. I don't either.
I think, having kids that are so young, and your kids are younger than mine, right?
Similar. 8. One just turned 8, and the other one is 9.5.
Okay. Yeah. So they're still young. I mean, they're very needy. So
yeah.
Just watching them grow, I don't want to miss a moment of that.
I know. Same here. And I feel like I don't know that I'm modeling the best behavior, because especially with the phone thing, like I'm like, but I'm working, I'm answering the email, and they're like, when we can't have screens, you can't have screens. I'm like, what?
It's like, you're media, and I'm like, no, I'm working on social. No, you're scrolling through. But yeah, I think that's a challenge. And then making sure that I get out and have enough social interaction with other adults. I think that's a big miss for me. I feel like just, even through the pandemic, and I haven't quite, got back into having that interaction with, people my
Yeah.
age.
I know, same here. But I don't, you know
Yeah.
what? I don't miss it that much. I have to be
Yeah.
honest. Like I have the podcast, which allows me to
Yeah.
connect with artists and adults, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Although I feel very rusty and like my conversational skills are not what I feel maybe they used to be. But I don't know. I really was happy in the
I,
pandemic, not having
yeah.
having an excuse not to have to go out and do things.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm not pushing myself to go out there, because I'm quite content, but it's the conversation skills. Like I feel like I've lost like my half of my vocabulary just to
I know.
being up and talking to like 8-year-olds.
I know, I hear you. And like, my first venture out, I feel like was the kids starting sports again. And
Yeah.
like, I'd be sitting there with the other parents just feeling like so awkward. I'm like, I have
Yeah.
literally nothing to talk about. It's like, how was
Yeah.
your pandemic? I don't know. How was your pandemic? And like, I mean, what else? And then it's people I have nothing in common with. I'm sorry, what'd you
Yeah.
say?
What did you bake yesterday? It was, a lot of
Exactly. I know. What are you cooking these days? I mean, but it feels so, it just feels so lame. I hate small talk. So that kind of, that kind of conversation just kills me. I'm like, I just
Yeah.
rather be silent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And I'm a very quiet person. I'm not, that was another good thing about the other art fair, that it really pushed me to have these conversations with people. When usually, I'm more than happy just to be sat there and just, not talk to anybody, but you had, you didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And it was great because people were interacting with you and interested in your work. And this was with a lot of the artists that I was seeing, that was one thing that I really enjoyed, was being able to get out there and talk. Go back, and when we were talking about conversations and interviews, so the interview that happened with Virgin Voyages, they came in and they videotaped me. She came in from Brooklyn. It was through Indie Walls.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
Brooklyn. So she had come in for another client, and the social media person dropped by, and we were doing the interview, and I was so rusty that it was just, my accent was all over the place. And I think there's a big in the middle and a emphasis on juxtaposition other than I'm talking about my work. It was just, I listened to it once and I was like, okay, no more.
Oh no. No, see, that's, you know what though? That is one of the hardest things, I think, is to talk about the work. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a really tough thing, I think, for all artists, because especially, I don't know. And maybe it depends on the questions too, which sometimes it's hard for me to do, even for the podcast, is to ask specific questions about the work, which is why I focus a lot more on just the person behind making the work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, let's
Which
talk
I
about.
love, because you never hear about that. Like, it's a lot of people, when they talk to me about my artwork, they don't know my history of how the journey that I took to get that. And a lot of, I'm lucky because I had a creative corporate job, which a lot of my friends didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, well, why'd you quit? And I was like, because I hated it.
Yeah.
Mean, I had my loves, but then, it's corporate.
Right.
So.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I know.
I answered your questions and didn't fade off too much.
No, you were great. Really great. It's so funny that you're working with Indie Walls. I interviewed with them when I was like trying to leave my, when I was trying to leave my PR job. And I had just started my macrame business. I think it must have been 2014 or so. And because they were in Brooklyn. I went over. I think they were in whatchamacallit. What are those co-working spaces? Anyway, I interviewed with them. I didn't get very far. I think I screwed up the interview. I'm sure I stuck my foot in my mouth or just was too nervous because I was so out of practice. Like I hadn't interviewed for a job in 10 years. So I didn't know what I was doing. But
what I've learned, and I didn't say this in our podcast, but I turned down a position. It was a creative director position that I turned down because it was almost like, if I take that position, I cannot do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to start. And then, in the past, like I've been working on my artwork and, I've kind of built that momentum. And then all of a sudden I start getting design work and then I stop my artwork. And you can see where I've either had a child or I've been promoted.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm great. It's so great that you're doing this full time though, because it's obviously truly what you love.
We did a co-op together.
Oh wait, like a studio co-op?
It was called a Mosaic Makers, where you sell your product in one space and you work there as well as take a commission. They take a commission from your pieces. And they had reached out to me, and so I put my work there, but my work was kind of still between being more fine art, and because I do these little air plant holders as well. I don't know if you saw them, but I have like small product pieces, which I think I'm going to just do away with. I don't know yet.
All right. But, I haven't seen them. I'm sure they're beautiful.
Scroll through and you'll see it. They're actually on my shop, but now and again I'll get like a request for them. But I'm very much into plants. I have a lot of plants around my house. So
yeah, it's crazy because with your style, I feel like, I mean, there's so many different ways you could take it if you want to do like the craft end of it. Like there are like small pieces that you could be doing, and then like Christmas ornaments and all these kinds of things. And then there's like the large scale art pieces,
Yeah.
It's like you're one person.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, Nosheen, you just need to choose a lane. Like, are you gonna go product way, or are you gonna? But some people do both, and just between you and me, like I might be introducing rugs, and I might, so I really want to get into the home decor.
Oh my God, I hope you do. That sounds amazing.
I was working on one piece, and it was a lot of the macrame rope in green with some embroidery, and somebody reached out and asked if this rug for sale, and I was like, it's not the rug. Because it was in my stories and it was taken at an angle that I guess it looked bigger than it was. And I was like, I feel like that's like a message from the universe being like, I know, this is one direction. I feel like that's a lot more admin work for me. I know. But I can license it. We'll see.
Yeah, no, that would be, that's the goal. Licensing. Right?
Yeah. Put it on somebody else, just reaping the royalties.
Yep, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Oh my God, I hope that happens for you. I mean, I would absolutely buy a West Elm Nosheen rug.
I hope so. I'm like West Elm, Design Within Reach. One of my friends is actually collaborating with Design Within Reach.
Oh, nice. That would be the perfect spot.
Yeah. But we'll see. I think this year, I mean, it's funny because when we talk about me transitioning into this being full-time, I feel like within the past weeks, it's been like, okay, this is full-time. Like in my mind, I'm like, yes, this is a full-time thing now.
Uh-huh.
And,
I mean, and there's so many ways to take it for you. And even better that you have like the business connections for it. Because I think a lot of people, that is where they struggle. It's like understanding the licensing aspect and things like that. Which is awesome because I feel like it's so much more accessible for you. Yeah. You got to use those connections.
And knowing, being through the whole product development, product design, and, knowing how product margins work and all, it's, that helps.
Yep. You got it. It's all there for you. It's awesome.
I hope so. Fingers crossed, and it's just funny how things line up. Like I had the other art fan, then I had Indie Walls actually approached me for another project, which they're getting approved this week, I think. So hopefully there's another project in the wings.
Oh, yay, fun. Is any of this that we just shared is this completely for off record?
Right now?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, you can put it on my phone.
Okay. I mean, I might just pick and choose some of the stories, but they're exciting, and I think it's cool to hear about the more businessy aspect too. Just thinking about that kind of stuff.
There are things I've learned within the past year. Like I wish people had told me about it before, like the hospitality arena. If somebody had told me about that 10 years back, that, hey, you need to talk to these people, um, I probably would have quit my full-time job earlier than I did.
Mm.
Um,
So, I mean, can you be specific, like to give anyone advice who wanted to get into this part of the industry? What would you advise them?
I would tell them to seek out interior designers, make friends with them, start a conversation, um, reach out to art advisories, see if they'll put you on rosters. That's something that will quickly kind of get you a few projects. And I feel like once you get a few projects, they start rolling in. Actually, no, I wouldn't say rolling in, but like you get more hits. And the interior design community, especially in Dallas, and I think, all over the US, it's a tight thing. And you might not get projects right away. I mean, it might be 6 months down the road, but that, even for me, I feel like I have more interior designers reaching out and saying, oh, I have this project in 4 months. Would you be interested? We're pitching you. And yeah, I think, and you can't, with social media, I was lucky because I had a few people reach out to me. But you really need to work hard to, and it's not about the algorithm or anything. Like, it's not about how many images you have on your feed or how many followers you have. It's just reaching out to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I use social media, is just to figure out who are those interior designers in my area and who might have the same sort of aesthetic as me, their clients that they work for, and see what fits. And this advice was actually given to me by a furniture designer in Dallas, which, it was the best advice he gave me. And he was absolutely open. Like, I've spoken to people and they're like, oh, I don't know, it just kind of happened. And I'm like, did it?
Right. No, that you have to do a lot. You have to be proactive, right? So what would you do?
Yeah.
Would you email them, or would you DM them on Instagram, or what do you feel like is the most effective way to communicate?
I feel like there's a whole etiquette to dealing with designers. And I think if I've worked with smaller designers where they're a lot more approachable if you just DM them. Some design firms don't like you to DM them, or they might have somebody that's taking care of their social media. So they might give you a contact or an email, or sometimes I just say, hey, I love the work your design firm produces. I would love to work with you. I would love for you to, keep my artwork kind of in your roster. And who do I reach out to? Is there an email that I can? And so then, I get their email that way. And if it is them if they're answering DM, then they'll just respond straight away.
Nice.
So I've learned that, some design firms don't like to be messaged through Instagram, or you just won't hear from them.
Right.
And then you have to follow email.
So when you are emailing, do you have let's talk about like sort of the technical stuff. Do you like attach a PDF with images of your work and the dimensions, or how do you do it?
I attach a PDF of my work and see if they can, once they've seen my work, they see that aesthetic, if that kind of clicks with what they're working on or any future projects, then I just tell them, hey, reach out. And I give them a range. Like, when I send them an email, I say, hey, this is my limitation. These are the sizes I can work within, and then pricing. But I do like a general price and general size.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't got, I would love to put a catalog together. I just haven't got there yet.
I know, it's the never-ending admin work.
Yeah. I love designing catalogs, but I feel like I can't half-ass it. Like, I need to sit there and do something, make something beautiful, and that will take like a whole month.
Yeah.
To put together.
So you want to do it in print that you can mail out?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. I would love to do that. But that would be more, I think, I wouldn't mail it out to everybody. It's just like a few, bigger clients, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be wonderful. Awesome. Yeah. I think this is so helpful for people. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's that there's no, Yeah, there's no like there's no easy way of figuring out how your business would work. And for different artists, it works a different way. But yeah, once you figure it out, and there's always, it takes time. I think for artists, you just need to stick at it. And it took me some time to get to where I am, but that was only because I just didn't invest time in myself and invest money in myself. So
right. Yeah. Well, and we have to consider the aesthetic, right? So, if you are an artist working with a certain style, and you try to reach out to an interior that's like it's completely a mismatch, like obviously,
something.
Yeah, like maybe don't waste your time with that. Like really try to find your niche in terms of aesthetic.
Yeah. And even magazines. I mean, reach out to magazines, or just to get some sort of exposure that your artwork is gonna be seen by people that really, really identify with those pieces.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Nosheen. This is amazing. And then your last name is pronounced Iqbal?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks again. I will definitely be, chatting with you again. And like on Instagram, I'll probably hit you up just to say hi here and there.
Yeah. And take a look at the that little Indie Wolves video.
Oh, I will. Thank you so much. And then I guess just to close it out, where again can people find you?
My Instagram handle is at Noshii, Noshii, and my website is www.noshii.com.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on niromastudio.com/The Fiber Artist Podcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.